Okay, so yes, that actually happened. Yeah, but I figured that in the interest of fairness, I should probably explain what led me to this sorry state of affairs. So, I am going to do that. I'm going to go over the kit a little bit here, but I feel like I have to say that this is only the second time since I restarted my model making journey that this has happened. I mean, I just generally don't quit. I usually have such a strong vision for what I want to accomplish that the kind of things I ran into on this little belkit thing are not going to stop me. The last time I quit a kit was like 5 years ago, and it was the Revell Yamaha DT1, which is like a 50-year-old kit. And at the time, I just had to deal with the fact that my skills were simply not up to my vision. I just wasn't going to get to the thing to looking as good as I wanted it to. That's not what happened here. Honestly, I can handle everything that I was dealing with on this kit. This was more like when you're in an abusive relationship with a really hot chick who's promising you dirty, dirty sex, but you just never get there, and you have to deal with being abused the whole time. And eventually, I just ran out of fucks. Oh wait, I can't say that anymore probably, right? Because of this whole thing with COPPA and the FTC and YouTube, and now I'm going to be, setting little kids' ears on fire. I don't know. Anyway, nobody should be confused about my channel. It's not made for little kids. You hear that, FTC? Not made for little kids. Anyhow, yeah, I just completely ran out of mojo on this thing, and I just got to the point where it was like straw meet camel, and I just was like over it instantly. And so yeah, and the funny thing is that this was a deal where I made an agreement with Patrick Perales of MBK to build this thing in return for him giving me a kit that I wanted for another project. And if you guys don't know, MBK is awesome. Patrick is an awesome dude. They are, they're a distributor. They're doing a bunch of, they're making inroads into the scale model kit distribution market in the United States. And, Patrick wanted a review of this thing to decide if they should really try and push the belkit line. And sorry, Patrick, but you're not going to get a recommendation from me. Anyway, I immediately just PayPal'd him the money for the free kit. I was so over it. So at any rate, that's kind of where I was at. Now let's get to the specifics of what got me there. Okay, so when I walked into my little workshop studio space this morning, this was kind of the aftermath from yesterday, complete with bloody rags. So yeah, I'll get to all that. I'll explain all that. But first, let me kind of recap where I was already at in my frustration level with this thing, just in case you haven't seen part one of this debacle. So this is the interior tub. And yeah, obviously I'm filming this part before I did the other part. So this is the interior tub, and this was okay. As far as fit goes, everything went together relatively easily, on the base part of the tub. And I'm talking about like all the stuff that's on the floor down there, the seats, all that stuff. I had some frustrations with this spare tire thing. The instructions don't do anything to tell you how to make that strap. They don't include any material for it. Every little thing had excessive parting line witnesses, even a little bit of flash. Mostly I ignored all that because I knew this was not going to be very visible once the thing had the body shell on it. But the honeymoon was over once I got above the floor line and started dealing with the roll cage and the steering column assembly and all that, because the engineering is just terrible. Basically throwing darts is more precise than the way that this steering column assembly goes in there. One thing you have to do is you're supposed to drill a hole in here, and the instructions just say drill a hole, and it's for the base of the steering column, but they don't tell you anything about where, and they don't give you a mark or anything. It's just like, figure it out. The fit of the roll cage itself was not good. You can see where I made a poor choice in glue material. I used UV glue to secure the bottom portion of the cage to that crossbar, and it just sitting in the box over like a month's time just failed, and they just popped loose. So, you know, bad choice on my part in terms of what glue I used, but you can see how far they are from actually joining at the point in space where they're supposed to. And yeah, I mean, just so this thing, by the time I got done with this, even though it, you know, looks pretty good and I hate for all that to go to waste, I'm so over it that, yeah, just don't care at this point. It just was not fun. And I just, yeah, I'm over it. I'm done with it. So that's where I was. That was my frame of mind when I came into this point of finishing the assembly of the body and getting it ready for paint. So basically what you have to do for that is you have to glue these pieces on for the fender, and then make that joint right there go away. Yeah, there's the cut on my thumb. That resulted in the bloody rags. That was a bleeder. But I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, so you have to put that piece on there, make the joint go away. Not too huge of a deal. But one thing that was frustrating is that, and this has been true with the whole kit, is that the parting lines are just not really crisp and precise. You know, all the way around the edges of all these openings, like for these grills, the headlights, the parting line is just not clean. It's kind of wavy. There's little bits of witness and tiny little bits of flash. Not enough to where from 3 feet away you could see it, of course, but from the close distance that I work and photograph at when I'm done, definitely, and it affects fit in some cases. Speaking of fit, some stuff that did not is the major clear parts. Got all of them in this little bag right here. The side windows mostly went in, but not right up there at the front. I had to do a lot of fiddling around. You can see that there's places where there's pins on the insides of the clear part that mate with the body. You can see those. Well, that pin right there on the front piece, not even close, would not go in, and even once I enlarged the hole so that it did, the combination of the thickness of the clear part right there, if we'll ever focus on it, and the little gusset right there in the corner of the window, it just wouldn't go all the way in, wouldn't sit flush on the outside. So you can see I just removed material there, and that took care of that problem. The front and rear glass is all part of one large piece. You can see that it was connected to the windshield with these two pieces here. Windshield fits pretty good when these little pins here, you can see kind of what happens there. You've got these assembly pins. If I probably cannot do it here on camera, just way too clumsy. Anyhow, these assembly pins right here are what hold the windshield in place. Fits pretty good when those were in, but when they were, these pins, these rear pins for the rear window did not line up, and the rear window was like 2 millimeters from being where it was supposed to be. Not even close. So I just separated the two, and you can see that fairly well solves that problem. The rear glass fits okay at that point. The headlight and tail light covers, they fit pretty well. There's not really anything that aligns them, and if you can see, the clarity and the molding quality, not so good. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera here. We'll use the cut on my thumb as the test of visual clarity. I don't know. It just doesn't. You just can't see it as well on camera. But the molding is just not really great. They're very thick, and they're kind of wavy. The side glass and the windshield are great. Let's see. Then there's this spoiler that you're supposed to put together. Yeah, engineering, terrible. Assembly pins and alignment holes, basically non-existent. Those holes are okay. These are the assembly pins that are supposed to go in them. So you can get a look at that. If I could hold on to it. You can see that they didn't really even begin to try and make those two little pins match the holes there that they're supposed to go in. Hopefully that'll be a good enough look at it. You can see that. Yeah, not even close. And then on the inside here, because this is 4 pieces, and you may be able to see, I don't know, but the pins on the end, and I use pins in the most generous sense with heavy air quotes, the pins on the ends of each of these 2 spoiler parts, essentially non-existent, and all you have to mate them to are some kind of dimples inside there. I mean, they're not even holes. They are literally just shallow dimples. And you're just not going to be able to see them in there, but there's just no excuse for that. It's not hard to make a hole in a part in an injection mold. Like, it's literally the easiest thing you can do in injection molding, because all you have to have is a little pin sticking out of the cavity to create a hole in the part. So it's just pure sloppiness. I mean, I get that they didn't want it to protrude all the way through to the outside, but they still could have made a pin or a hole that did not go all the way through, even as thin as that part is, that actually had nice crisp edges that would engage corresponding pins on the little spoiler part. So that was just junky and frustrating. Didn't even finish that thing. So then once I got all of that stuff taken care of, the next thing was dealing with the photoetch. Now, I've already talked about my irritation with this photoetch fret, the fact that there's not enough room between the part and the fret to get the tip of your nippers in there. And you really have to use nippers, because this is stainless steel photoetch, okay? It is very stiff, and it's relatively thick, and you're not cutting this shit with an X-Acto knife, at least not without completely ruining your blade. So that's a basic irritation with this photoetch. Okay, so the first thing I had to do with this is right here on the front are these recesses for what I guess are like fog lights. And if you're doing the nighttime version, you use this piece off the photoetch fret that's got these cutouts. Otherwise, you use a piece that covers the entire thing. Now, what you should instantly recognize is that that's a curved surface, and you have to form that piece of photo etch around it. And that's, you know, a little bit of a trick. Fortunately, it's stainless steel, so it will normalize. Some people say anneal. That's not really correct for ferrous metals. It's really just non-ferrous metals where you use the term annealing, but that's getting super pedantic. Doesn't really matter. The bottom line is you have to heat it up, let it cool off slowly so that it will get soft enough to bend without springing back on you. And so that's why I have my super duper miniature Arbor press out here, is because this is what I used to form that. And what I did is I just used this pencil eraser, which is soft but springy and firm enough. Put the thing on there, and so I can just kind of demonstrate this, because this is kind of a useful thing. If you've ever thought about buying a little Arbor press, this is a good thing to use them for. And this is not what I used to actually do it, but you get something that's got the right radius, and it's kind of a guessing game because it's going to spring back a little bit. You don't really know. This is obviously a much smaller radius than what I needed, but at any rate, you just take your little Arbor press and apply some, hold on a second, it's a trick to get everything lined up, and you could do this with something besides a fancy little Arbor press. You could do this with a C-clamp or a pair of pliers or whatever. It's just the trick is getting all of the elements here, held together in the right orientation so that when you use your physics and smash the shit out of it, that you get the right result. And you can see that puts a nice round curve in the thing. And then, so then the trick was to get that to basically match the curvature of the front of the bodywork here. Yeah, so as you can see, I think I did a fairly decent job of that. That one, was on there, super glue. So I had the other one, had them both super glued on there and thought I was doing fine. And then while I was working around with this other stuff, I don't even know how it happened. There was not an event that I identified as the cause, but as you can see, that one popped off. And I was like, well, shit, now I don't have any confidence that they're going to ever stay on there for the long term, but I'm going to persevere. And so I was I scraped off the old glue. That wasn't too hard, fortunately. I mean, look, you've got smooth sheet metal and smooth plastic, and super glue does not do well in tension. I didn't have the bend quite right, so I had to kind of mash it in there, and that sort of spring loaded it, and I'm sure it just popped off all by itself, which of course any change in temperature could also precipitate because, hello, thermal expansion. So anyhow, the thing, so I got all the glue off there, put some more super glue on there, went to stick this back on there, and the super glue was already hard because of remnants of kicker, I guess, which is crazy. I mean, the kicker was yesterday. What was the day before. This all happened yesterday, and the first time I glued the thing on there was the day before. So, yeah, those remnants of kicker were 24 hours old, but it still hardened the super glue almost instantly, and I'm like, okay, well, shit, now I gotta I gotta dig that off of there and start over. And it was in the process of holding the thing like this and digging at said super glue with this when the blade slipped and went slice right through the edge of my thumb. And that is how I ended up with these bloody racks. So yeah, and it took a lot of super glue. I didn't use any kicker, but it took a lot of super glue to get that thing shut and stop bleeding. And just to be clear, that's not what made me quit. I mean, look, I'm an ex-motocross guy. The number of times that I've had to get up bleeding and keep going is beyond count. So that wasn't going to stop me. It was actually more like an hour later, when I was still picking and digging and fussing with this thing, that I just suddenly, it just hit me. I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I spending my time and energy on this piece of shit when I just don't care about it? It's not fun. And that was it. I was done. And part of the reason why I was thinking that is because I had not gotten to these parts, okay? These little gems are, what they are is, hold on a second, let me show you. They are vanes, I guess for aerodynamic effect, that go right here on the front for airflow effect. So they basically stick out of the sides of the thing there. And what they, tell you to do is just, yeah, like magic, stick them to the sides of the car there. Same thing by the rear fender. You can see there where they tell you to do that, okay? And so what they give you, again, is just this sort of groove that basically tells you where in space these things are going to land. Now, if you're even thinking ahead a little bit, you can see that that these are pretty thin. Those grooves are not going to do a great job of holding those parts. I don't know. I was just feeling like, okay, I'm going to have to probably do a little scraping in there. Maybe do some use a scriber to deepen those grooves to get them to hold. You can see how wide and shallow they are in the back there, maybe. So anyway, I was just thinking about all these things, thinking about how bad my thumb hurt, thinking about what all I had to do yet to finish this thing, because one thing that you have to realize is that pretty much all of this color scheme is basically like a body wrap, okay? Let me show you the decal sheet just so you understand what I'm saying. If you're going to build this kit, this was going to be an adventure, okay? Pretty much that entire color scheme is decals. You don't paint any of this blue because, as you can see, it's got some graphics in itself, and it's going to look pretty cool if you can get through all that. But that was going to be a pretty extreme decaling adventure. And you can see, like around the front of the bodywork, where the decal has to go over the those little veins that are sticking out, and that's good that they gave you the provision for that. I think these decals, I don't know, they have belkits have a reputation for crappy decals, but I feel like the decals, the way that they're designed and the printing is outstanding. Now, having said that, that's without actually trying to apply these. I don't know how that would have gone, and I'm not going to find out. But that's something that you have to be aware of. And honestly, the fact that this thing was going to look so cool when I finished was really the only motivating factor that I had to finish the damn thing. And honestly, just not enough. Just got completely over it. And so there you go. That's how we ended up in the blender. Yeah, so there you go. One thing we've definitely learned from this is that if you want a badass blender, get a KitchenAid Pro line, because that thing, I'm actually pretty impressed. I had no idea how that was going to go down. I fully expected to have to buy my mom a new blender. Yeah, I should probably video her reaction when she finds out what I did with it. Hey, look, at any rate, yeah, that is also definitely not for kids. Kids, do not put model kits in a blender. It was satisfying, though. I mean, yeah, I have to admit, yeah, even after all that work I did, that was pretty satisfying. So anyway, this is done, and my closing thoughts on this are, yeah, look, none of this was insurmountable. if you really care about, doing a WRC rally car, look, belkits is what you've got, and I respect them for tackling that niche. And that's, kind of their thing. They do stuff that, from a subject point of view, is not readily available. And yeah, so if you do really care, but the problem is I just didn't care enough. And when people ask me, how do you, get through these projects that are sometimes really hard, and, how do you invest all that effort? And the number one answer that I always give is, look, you just have to have a really strong vision for the final result before you even open the kit box. You have to love the subject, and you have to love what you're trying to do with it. And in this case, I just didn't. Not nearly enough. So there you go. But this also, brings me, because I was talking about this with Patrick yesterday. He was kind of like, look, dude, you okay? Because I was mad. And, we shared some thoughts about the model car kit side of the hobby. And look, some people are going to get up in arms about this, but I think that the bottom line is that you model car kit guys, you just have a lower standard for what's acceptable in your kits. And I don't know if that's because you guys just don't care, or if the model kit companies that are making them know that you're going to pay for them anyway, and that they have to be at a certain price point. Because I get it from a business point of view. When you know that it's going to be accepted, and you've got to invest a lot in a body shell tool, for example, because that's a pretty substantial piece of injection molding hardware there. I can get, why you want to invest the least amount possible in that project. I totally understand that. But that doesn't make it less frustrating from a builder's point of view, especially when you're like me and you've been exposed to other genres where the kits are just frankly far superior. One of the things Patrick and I were talking about was comparing this car kit to some others. I just finished my Stompy Robot vignette, and it included the Fujimi 1/24th scale Mini Cooper, and it was just far better. I mean, literally everything went together, and I didn't have to pay special attention to any of the parts. As opposed to with this kit, I had to mess with literally every single thing that came off the sprue. And it just wore me out. I just got tired of it. The only thing that I did with the Fujimi kit was I adjusted the fit between the body shell and the tub, because I knew it was going to show, and I just had to. But that was a choice that I made. That wasn't because it was really necessary to be able to assemble the thing or to come up with normally a decent looking result, because if you'd had all the windows anyway. Point being is, with this kit, to get a decent result, to even get the thing to go together, there was just more futzing around with it than I really felt like it was worth investing in. So there you go. And it's just a totally different deal, from something like a Tamiya airplane kit, or even the Tacom Kraz truck kit that I built last year for Patrick. Even with that thing, it had assembly and engineering issues that pissed me off every time I picked it up. But the end result was so much more detailed and so much more cool, and I had a strong vision for it that it just felt a lot more worthwhile, whereas this one just wasn't worth the hassle. So anyway, there you go. Maybe I'm just a wimp for not being willing to deal with it. I can accept that. But I just think that that's kind of representative of the overall state of the model car market. And there's also the fact that when you look at that market, there's so many different options. Like, I couldn't even begin to name all of the really cool Ferraris that people want to make models of. Whereas with, let's say, World War II aircraft, for the mainstream popular kits, there's like a dozen, and pretty much anybody could name all of them. So again, it's a difference in the overall nature of the subject that contributes to that, and I get that. But still, I just wish that every time I wanted to pick up a car kit because I felt like doing something shiny and cool, that I didn't end up feeling like I was getting my ass kicked. Anyhow, there it is. Those are my thoughts, and that is how you blend a car model. Anyway, hope this was at least entertaining, and as always, I appreciate you watching. Much love.